There we go. All right, I think we're going here. Well, welcome to the Rook community meeting for April 8th. We'll go ahead and get started. Just got back from KubeCon and had a good time there. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Start with the milestone checkup. For 1.15, first of all, we did a 1.15 release about a month ago. I guess that was before our previous community meeting anyway. So that's a done deal. 1.5.115.10, nothing has been merged to that 1.15 branch since that last release. So right now we don't have another release planned for 1.15. That's still a possibility though, if necessary. Hopefully though, we can move on to 1.16 for the backports at this point anyway. And I believe the project board is empty or should be empty and nothing to discuss there. Okay. So if no comments on 1.15, the 1.16, we did have a patch release a couple of weeks ago, and we do have a number of fixes, just kind of the standard fixes, nothing too urgent, but I was thinking next Tuesday, we could plan on getting that next release out with the latest fixes. As far as the project board, nothing in blocking release or really in progress. I think pretty much everything in this to-do column is be nice to have things, but nothing really blocking or urgent. And probably at some point I should clean this out and move them to the 1.17 board. But for a while still, we'll be backporting most fixes probably to 1.16 for a couple more weeks. At least the more important ones. Any comments on 1.16? Standard stuff. Just keeping it on the cadence. Then 1.17. So we did create the branch for the 1.17 release a couple of weeks ago, just before KubeCon. And everything's in place. We're working on the or I think I just saw Blaine merged the upgrade guide. Thanks, Blaine, for that. We've got things pretty much coming together. They give us a few more days to wrap things up. I was thinking for next Tuesday, to plan on that release on the 15th. Still working on the blog. Well, haven't even started it yet, but if you have suggestions for the blog, definitely ping me in Slack or let me know what you'd like to see covered there as far as the new features to talk about or any breaking changes besides what's already found in the upgrade guide and our pending release notes, where we'll use that as the basis for the blog. But yeah, it's just a glance at the 1.17 board. As far as things we got in the blocking release column, so there's the generate certificates command, work with SUSE and Debian-based OSD pods. I know that's in progress. Blaine's reviewing, and I don't think the owner's in this call, but any comments on that, Blaine?
No, nothing to add.
Mhm. Okay. And this one for the generation and observed generation, after looking more about it. So yeah, Josh, thanks for the comments there. I think my latest observation is that the reason that the generation is getting updated is because of default values that are showing up after we update the generation. Even though we're not changing any values, for some reason the default values are showing up after we do that. And that's what's causing the generation to be updated, because of the default values changing or appearing in the spec.
I see. So it's intended to be a no-op other than setting status or whatever, and those default values are causing the generation to increment.
Right. But maybe it's something about how they're being serialized or deserialized
Hmm.
because we query for the CR and then we update the generation field and then we reset the CR. I mean, we update the CR and something about that action of is just causing those default values to show up
Hmm.
in the spec. So I have a thought on how to resolve this specific issue, which is, well, if the generation changes, then let's just have this behavior of letting the next reconcile do it. But but also check, did the generation change? If not, then continue with the same reconcile. Otherwise, we'll have reconciles not getting completed if the generation behavior changes.
But why doesn't that become an infinite loop? I mean, if the same problem with default values are there, anytime a status change is made, it should increment the generation and trigger this as an infinite loop, right?
I think this would only happen with the default values the first time we make an update. And I guess I didn't look if it happens when we update the status. I don't know why it wouldn't happen when we
Hmm.
update the status. But I think because we immediately add the finalizer every time, that's when the change in the default values would become visible. And after that, since they're already in that state, I don't think they change again. So probably the finalizer just triggers it, but the status might as well if we don't add the
Hmm.
finalizer.
Because I mean, when you dump, like for Ceph cluster, when you dump it, the default values definitely don't come out when you're looking at the live CR.
Mhm. Well, and it's not all of the default values. It's I started to look, but I didn't get much time. Some of them don't have the omit empty property, and those definitely start showing up.
Huh.
And like some of the structs that we have, like if they're not nullable, then it seems like they were showing up even though they don't need to. So
So
there's some
Well,
subtle behavior there.
if it's not a pointer, nullable isn't applicable.
Exactly.
And omit empty is part of the JSON spec, which means that it'll omit things that are like the like empty or zero type for the field, but I don't think omit empty will omit things at a default value that is a set value. So it'll omit like the empty string or the zero value, but I don't think it'll omit a like default that's like non-zero. So this might be behavior that we just have to live with.
Right. I'm pretty sure that behavior's been there for a long time, and it just besides this generation getting updated unexpectedly, I don't think we've seen other side effects of that or downsides to it, I guess.
yeah, I'm just trying to understand where this is breaking down. I mean, it either is in the way Cube Builder is handling things, right, in terms of how the data structures get serialized, or it is something to do with the annotations that are emitted in the CRDs, or perhaps a bug in how API server is handling CRDs.
Yeah, well, and I don't think we're adding annotations in general, all these CRDs.
So sorry, I didn't
Um,
mean annotations in the Kubernetes sense. I meant in terms of the validation markup that goes into the CRDs.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, yeah, my thought is just to let's check for if the generation changed and change the reconcile behavior based on that. But yeah, as far as expecting different behavior from these default values, that'd be a bigger challenge. I'm not sure I'm ready to tackle. Anyway, so we can follow up on the PR with other comments on that. Um, yes, the internals of the control runtime open cube builder. It's lots of fun. Okay, next issue. So enabling the CSI operator by default. This is one that Subham and I are still investigating and possibly will be able to accomplish for this release, but at the same time, I don't feel very much confidence in it at this point. The There's also a work item on the CSI operator owners to change the CRDs at least to V1 beta 1, and that work is not done yet. It's in progress, but not done. And so we were just talking in a separate meeting too, about probably this is not going to happen, but I do want to spend a bit more time on it this week, investigating what it would take and if it is still reasonable to attempt it. But it's the type of thing where we expect the same functionality after making that change. And if all goes perfectly, then users won't notice the change. But we do have to make sure that there aren't regressions. Otherwise, that's the risk. Okay. And if there are any other features or things we really want to see in the release, definitely do either add them to the blocking release column or or ping us in Slack so we're aware of them. Any other issues come to mind for 1.17 that we should be aware of?
Blaine and I kind of looked through this yesterday, and one thing that I had thought was maybe it would be good to get a 1.18 open so that if we decide to punt things from 1.17, we've got some place to push them to.
Just the project board.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, for example,
Okay.
so if the CSI operator doesn't make the cut, that's like the one thing on this board that makes me the most nervous about happening in the middle of a minor release series. So if we decide it's not going to make it, then we can push it to 1.18.
Exactly. So yeah, I'll open that 1.18 project after this call. And with CSI operator also, if as it gets more stable, we can encourage more people to try it out and test it with it's a simple flag to basically change to true in the operator's YAML. So if we can get some people trying it out, that would help too, increase our confidence. So that in 1.18, we really are feeling good about it. But, okay. Any other thoughts on that? Not. Let's see. I'll go back and move on. Oh, I guess we already talked about the CSI operator, and that's the only design question I have in that list for today. That's related to 1.17. So report on KubeCon London. Let's see. So I guess I'm the only one on the call that was there. So we had a great time there for the maintainers talk. So it was Deepika and Artem, myself, and Madhu from CSI team were there. So we probably had about 250 people is what I estimated. We were the first talk of basically first session of the conference when they broke out. So that was nice instead of being at the end of the session, end of the conference last time in Salt Lake. The booth, there was some traffic. I felt like not as much traffic as I've seen in the past in the Europe conferences, but it's fine. Definitely got some good feedback. Or it's always good to hear people stopping by and saying how much they use the project, how big their clusters are, and to keep it up. So lots of appreciation for the project from what I hear from people in the booth. And then I had recorded a 60-second project update video that they showed each morning before the keynotes. And it was interesting to see myself so big on the big screen. I went early enough at least one day to see that, but I don't know how much impact that made. I'm really curious to know if people pay attention to that or they're just getting settled. Anyway, it's good, all good for Rook visibility. I don't know. Overall, it went well. Wish everybody could be there, but it's a long ways to travel. Any questions about KubeCon or comments?
Did anybody complain at the booth? I'm just curious what complaints people might have had.
Yeah, I need to check my notes. There's always a few people that say, "Well, what about this bug? Can you look into this?" Maybe I'll follow up in Slack with a few thoughts on what people were commenting on. Yeah, someone had definitely a mon failover bug where mons are getting stuck during pending if the node was rebooting. That one I wanted
That,
to look at.
that is probably a
Mhm.
Kubernetes bug or a feature, depending on how you look at it.
Right. Um, yeah, I want to look if there's anything Rook can do about it because
I
it
mean,
was
this
a
is a
function. But anyway,
I haven't seen this like specifically with Mons. I mean, I have seen it happen with Mons, but it's a general problem when a node goes down that Kubernetes is very, very hesitant to migrate that pod away. Sort of make scheduling decisions, and in some cases it can't. I saw recently
Mhm.
an update where something went wrong. Like it was an OS, sorry, it was an OS update, right? So normally we we try not to let Ceph spend a lot of time reshuffling data around, right? Doing a global restore. So we don't do rolling updates. Usually what we do is we'll blast an OS update to every node, and then we reboot every node at the same time it comes up because we have a maintenance window scheduled for this.
Mm.
And something went wrong with one of the nodes. Like, I don't know what happened. It was weird. But like CNI was busted. Something wasn't working right. And uh, over several days, there were still nodes or pods stuck terminating, and Kubernetes wouldn't respawn them. So probably a scheduler bug, something like that. But until that node
Right.
was into a working state, it would basically all of the pods that had been scheduled in that node were stuck and couldn't be killed, couldn't be rescheduled.
Nothing. Yeah. Right. And for things like that, the nice thing with mon failover is that if the mon isn't responding, we just want to abandon that mon and start a new one. And so from that perspective, we may be able to help in that scenario for mon failover.
Yeah, well,
But
I think Mon failover will actually still work because in that scenario where Kubernetes has gone crazy, I mean, it's hard to accommodate the scenario in which Kubernetes has gone crazy, right? Um,
right.
but in that scenario, I think it will eventually fail over because you're not dependent on the deployment being able to terminate and create a new pod. The operator is actually creating a new deployment that gets rescheduled.
Mhm. Right. Um, yeah. But yeah, that was just one topic, and I'll look for my notes on other things. Okay, as far as KubeCon Japan coming up, I believe in June. Satoru is driving that and planning on presenting Rook there. KubeCon India, uh, Subban is planning on submitting that proposal this week, so that we can have a maintainer talk and kiosk there. As far as Ceph releases, just a few notes here, just to carry over from previous meetings. Still got the ARM issue for Reef, likely won't get it fixed there. So I think that's old news. 18.2.5 is in progress. I've not seen anything about the 19.2.2 starting anytime soon. And I believe the V20 Tentacle dev freezes this month. So I'm guessing this summer Tentacle will be out. We'll see when that happens. So that's all the notes I have for today's agenda. Any other topics anybody'd like to bring up? I think we just have a few of us today, and we've already been talking in other meetings or in Slack, so maybe we're good.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. I'm curious as to, Travis, how you felt about the conversion over to using the piped predicates and handlers, if that made your life better
Oh,
or worse since you've been touching that area.
right. Right. Actually, that was really nice. Thanks so much for doing that because It's been so long since I've used generics, since Go didn't have them forever, and to see them again, it's refreshing because it shrinks the code. Yeah, yeah. When I was touching that code for the looking at the generation issue, it's like, oh, I only have to touch this code in 1 or 2 places instead of 15. You know, so it was a clear benefit. So
That's
yes,
great. That was the hope, is to try and make it easier to understand, because that some of those like enormous switch statements and sort of guards testing for the wrong types and type assertions just made it hard to reason about what was going on. So for me, anyways.
exactly. So much duplicate code without generics. It just if there's other places we can use generics, that'd be great. I don't know that we have many places where we need generics like that, but that was very useful in that case for sure.
There's a place or two where I've seen things that are sort of like specific to like one controller that could probably be generalized. I had an example actually yesterday, and I was working on adding Kafka credentials handling. I was like, oh, I'm just going to copy this from this other function, and all I'm changing is like the receiver or something. So it's probably some way to factor that out.
Right. And none of us really have been using generics in Go, so it's a new pattern to figure out too. But it's a pattern we should definitely look for more. Yeah, back a long time ago when I was at Microsoft and using C Sharp, used generics all the time. So it's a good thing, in my opinion, as long as it's not overused. Oh, okay. If no more comments, I guess we'll call it a meeting. Alrighty, thanks everyone. Have a good day.
Here's
Yeah.
Thanks.